Well, it changed my life. If I hadn't read that book in late 1949, uh, I, I'd have had a different future. It instantly clicked with me that what he was saying made sense. And then the chance to study under him and under Dave Dodd too. It was a different experience, but it was hugely helpful. It shaped my professional life. There's no question about it. Working for him was a sort of different experience because Walter and I were in a little office. Ben was in another office. It was a tiny firm, 5 or so people, and almost anything that we knew what he was looking for, and so almost anything Walter and I would come up with, he would tell us go buy it, but he also did it in very, very small amounts. I was much more inclined to, if I found something good, to load up on it. And Ben was not that, he was really not that interested when we were at Graham Newman. I mean, I didn't know it then, but he was getting close to retiring. Making money did not motivate him, and he had all the money he needed. And I remember one time I was standing with him by the elevator. We were going down to eat at the cafeteria in the bottom of the Shannon building, and he said, "You still remember it?" He said, "Warren," he said, don't worry too much about making money." He says, it won't change the way you live. He says, it'll change the way your wife lives. But he said, our wives live differently. But he says, look, you and I are wearing the same clothes. We're going to eat in the same cafeteria, so relax. Ben actually, when I was working for him, the Scarsdale Adult School wanted Ben to teach a course, a night course, and at Scarsdale High School. And Ben said, why don't you do this, Warren? So I went up and taught a class for 8 or 10 weeks, but that was pretty much the extent of it. Well, it wasn't what's going on in the market that week. It was looking at businesses, and maybe he may have worked in some other arbitrage type situations, but it was all practical advice about current situations. And as we worked through those, you would presumably learn how to think about securities. Ben was always thinking, by the time at least I knew him, as a passive investor, that you bought a little of everything. So he was widely diversified, which is not a style that I would go for. And he really he wasn't driven toward maximizing performance. Now, bear in mind, this was the last year or two of his professional investment management career, so it may have been different earlier on. But he would never get excited about an idea, but he would never throw cold water on it either. I would get excited, and he always felt that we shouldn't go out and talk to managements about the business because he felt that his books were out there for people all over the country who would not have that opportunity. So he felt we ought to achieve our results in a way similar to what somebody who read the book could achieve them, and that we might be cheating a little if we worked a lot harder than that. I would have loved to go out more and see management. So it was almost like we were running the fund as a few people who had read the book and who did not have the opportunity even to go visit managements. So the place was a little more passive and slower than I might have liked. And but I was by that time I was 23 or 24, but I was eager for a little more action. Well, like I say, he would put a little money in almost anything that I came up with, and he was not looking at all for the great business. He was looking for really mediocre to a little bit better than that businesses that were selling very, very cheap, and it worked very well. And of course, the irony is that the shareholders of Graham Newman made more money out of GEICO, which was then called Government Employees Insurance, which was the antithesis of the kind of company you normally would invest in. I learned a lot of things about techniques of teaching. But Ben was this combination of being a wonderful friend to everybody, but always somewhat distant. I mean, he did not want to sit around a table and just shoot the ball or anything of that sort. It was not his style. So he would do things for you. My first son was born when I was working for him, and then we named him Howard Graham Buffett after my dad and after Ben. And Ben came over, and Esty, his wife, and they had a movie projector, a camera. I mean, fairly expensive type. And he would always be doing that for you. And he didn't want anything in return. He actually, on his birthdays, he would give gifts to the people that attended the birthday party because he figured he was the happy one. He was my wife mentioned that I wasn't really too enthusiastic about dancing, and the next morning I found on my desk at Graham Newman a gift certificate to the White Plains Arthur Murray studio.
That's great. Did you go?
I didn't go, and then he asked me a few weeks later, he said, they tell me at Arthur Murray's that you haven't been there. Well, you did get the feeling when you were with him that he was a man who he was a kind man. He said every day he wanted to do something, foolish, something creative, and something generous. And believe me, he did things generous every day. He did not need to be coming up to Columbia on Thursday afternoons for 20 or so students, many of whom probably didn't really even appreciate what they were getting, but he did it for decades, and he expected absolutely nothing in return. I mean, I saw that time after time in terms of what he did. He really he wanted to treat other people better than he expected them to treat him.